27th September 2024. Warton Aerodrome, Lancashire. 6:30 in the morning. Grey skies, drizzle, typical British autumn weather. But inside BAE Systems' flight test facility, something extraordinary is about to happen. Typhoon test aircraft ZK-355 sits on the tarmac. From the outside, it looks like any other Typhoon. Same Delta canard configuration, same twin engines, same sleek profile. But inside, hidden behind the nose cone, sits something that will change everything. ECRS Mark II. European Common Radar System Mark II. The world's most advanced combat air radar. Designed in Edinburgh, built in Britain, tested in Lancashire. Completely British. Andy Holden, Radar Delivery Director at BAE Systems, 3 decades in aerospace, responsible for this entire programme, isn't at Warton. He's at home, in his office, refreshing his phone, waiting, praying. Because this is the first flight, the moment when years of work, billions of pounds, hundreds of engineers, thousands of hours, faces the ultimate test. Does it work? 6:35. The pilot climbs in. Systems activate. The ECRS Mark II powers up. Andy's phone buzzes. Text message from the test team. All systems nominal, preparing for takeoff. 6:42. Typhoon ZK-355 rolls down the runway, accelerates, lifts, climbs into the grey Lancashire sky, and Andy Holden, sitting 200 miles away, finally breathes. Later, he'll say, it's one of those moments you don't forget. Knowing that years of effort culminated in that first flight is indescribable. It's a privilege to be part of a programme delivering game-changing capabilities for the Typhoon. Game-changing. That word gets thrown around constantly in defence. Every new missile is game-changing. Every upgrade is revolutionary. Every system is unprecedented. But this time? This time it's true. Because ECRS Mark II doesn't just detect enemy aircraft. It attacks them, electronically. It doesn't just see enemy radars, it jams them. It doesn't just track targets, it dominates the electromagnetic spectrum across ranges that adversaries struggle to match. And it's British, not American, not multinational with watered-down requirements, British. Designed to British specifications, built by British engineers for the Royal Air Force. And when NATO, when America, when Germany, when France saw what Britain built, they didn't just admire it, they panicked. Because Britain just leapfrogged them. In the most critical domain of 21st century air combat, electronic warfare, and nobody saw it coming. But to understand why ECRS Mark II is revolutionary, why Britons should feel pride, we need to go back to 1983, to the moment Britain decided we will never again depend solely on America for combat aircraft. The Falklands War, 1982. Britain fought Argentina 3,000 miles from home, and won, but it was close, dangerously close. British Harriers, brilliant aircraft, British, design dominated Argentine fighters. But Britain lost ships. HMS Sheffield, HMS Coventry, HMS Ardent, Antelope. 6 ships sunk, 10 damaged, all by one weapon, the French Exocet missile. And Britain's air defence? Inadequate. The Sea Harrier was superb, but there weren't enough. Britain needed land-based air superiority fighters that could deploy anywhere, but had none. The lesson was clear. Britain needed a new fighter, an air superiority fighter, the best in the world. And waiting for America to sell it wasn't acceptable. So Britain joined with Germany, Italy, and Spain. The Eurofighter programme. Designed the best multi-role combat aircraft possible. No compromises. No good enough. The best. The project took decades. Critics called it wasteful, delayed, over budget. said Britain should just buy American F-15s or F-16s, cheaper, proven. But Britain persisted, because Britain understood something fundamental: sovereignty. If you depend on others for your defence technology, you're not truly sovereign. You're a client. And clients follow, they don't lead. Britain wanted to lead. And in 2003, the first RAF Typhoon entered service. Immediately, it proved exceptional. Air superiority missions? Dominant. Quick reaction alerts? Perfect. Ground attack? Surprisingly effective. But there was always one limitation. One area where Typhoon wasn't quite world-leading: its radar. The original Captor mechanically scanned radar was good, very good for its time, but mechanical, old-fashioned by modern standards. Modern fighters use AESA, Active Electronically Scanned Array radars. No moving parts, faster, more reliable, more capable. America's F-22, F-35, AESA from the start. France's Rafale, AESA. Even Russia's Su-57, AESA. Typhoon needed one, desperately. The Eurofighter consortium developed Captor-E, an AESA radar. Better than the old mechanical system, but with one brilliant British innovation: a swivel mount. Most AESA radars are fixed, limited to about 120 degrees scan. Captor-E, mounted on a repositioner, 200 degrees, nearly twice the coverage. That alone made it competitive, but Britain wanted more. Britain wanted electronic attack capability. Britain wanted the radar to not just see enemy systems, but destroy them, electronically, remotely, invisibly. So Britain developed ECRS Mark II and changed everything. What makes ECRS Mark II different from every other fighter radar in the world? First, wideband operation. Most fighter radars operate in narrow frequency bands. Good for detecting aircraft, less good for electronic warfare. ECRS Mark II operates across an enormous electromagnetic spectrum. It can detect not just aircraft, but surface-to-air missiles, ground radars, communication systems, everything electronic. And it doesn't just detect, it analyzes, classifies, prioritizes, then feeds that information to the pilot instantly. Second, electronic attack. This is the revolutionary bit. ECRS Mark II can jam enemy radars with tremendous power, while still performing its primary function as an air-to-air sensor. Imagine, a Typhoon approaches enemy airspace. The enemy has sophisticated surface-to-air missiles, S-400, S-300, deadly systems with ranges exceeding 100 kilometers. Normally, attacking those systems requires dedicated electronic warfare aircraft, EA-18G Growlers for America, Tornado ECRs for Germany, now retired. Expensive, complicated, vulnerable. But Typhoon with ECRs Mark II doesn't need them. The Typhoon detects the enemy radar, analyses its frequency, calculation optimal jamming parameters, then broadcasts a massive jamming signal directly at the threat. The enemy radar sees nothing, or worse, sees false targets, hundreds of them, while the real Typhoon, invisible to their systems, launches weapons from beyond their effective range. The enemy never even knows they're being attacked. Third, sensor fusion. ECR's Mark II doesn't operate alone. It integrates with other sensors, with other aircraft, with ground systems. Multiple Typhoons flying together, their radars combine, creating a composite picture far more accurate than any single aircraft could achieve. Enemy stealth aircraft trying to hide? Harder when 4 radars from different angles are searching, and it shares that information instantly with friendly forces. F-35s, AWACS, ground commanders. Everyone sees what the Typhoon sees. Fourth, it's British. This is critical. America develops amazing systems, but sells them with restrictions. Can't use them certain ways, can't integrate certain weapons, can't share data with certain allies. ECRS Mark II? British. Designed by Leonardo UK in Edinburgh. Integrated by BAE Systems in Lancashire. No American restrictions. No export controls Britain doesn't control. Britain decides who gets it, how it's used, what weapons integrate, everything. That's not just capability, that's sovereignty, real sovereignty. But does it actually work? Theory is lovely. Reality? 24. September 2024. First flight. Andy Holden, watching his phone. Test pilot flying ZK-355 out of Wharton. The radar powered up perfectly, detected simulated targets, tracked them, switched modes seamlessly, performed exactly as designed. Ground testing before that? Hundreds of hours in BAE's integrated test facility, the only facility of its kind in the UK. Engineers flew the radar without ever putting a jet in the air. Tested every mode, every function, every possible scenario. Tim Bungie, chief engineer for ECRS Mark II at Leonardo UK, supervised it all. Decades of experience in radar design. He knows what good looks like. And he said, "The development of the ECRS Mark II is fully utilising the UK's world-class radar design skills." World-class, not good, not competitive. World-class. And the RAF agrees. Air Commodore Nick Lowe, head of capability delivery for Combat Air, stated, "The ECRS Mark II radar will further transform Eurofighter Typhoon's control of the air and provide exceptional capability our adversaries will struggle to match." Struggle to match. That's precise language. Not can't match, struggle to match. Meaning, even if they figure out how to match it, it'll take them years, maybe decades. Now let's talk about what Typhoon with ECRS Mk2 can do. Capabilities that make NATO, even Britain's closest allies, nervous. Suppression of enemy air defences, SEAD. Traditionally, SEAD requires dedicated aircraft. America uses F-16 CJs with HARM missiles. Specialised, expensive, limited numbers. Typhoon with ECRS Mk2? Every Typhoon becomes a SEAD platform. Scenario: RAF Typhoons tasked with striking a heavily defended target. Enemy has integrated air defence, multiple SAM sites, overlapping coverage, lethal. Traditional approach: send Typhoons with escort, electronic warfare aircraft to jam, wild weasels to hunt SAMs, strike aircraft to hit the target. Total: maybe 20 aircraft for one mission. Typhoon with ECRS Mk2 approach: 4 Typhoons. That's all. First Typhoon detects enemy radars from 150 kilometers away, far beyond their engagement range. Analyses each system, prioritizes threats, shares data with the other 3 Typhoons via data link. Second Typhoon maneuvers into jamming position, activates ECRS Mark II electronic attack mode. Massive jamming power focused on the priority SAM site. That radar goes blind. Third and fourth Typhoons, now invisible to the jammed radars, launch Storm Shadow cruise missiles from maximum range. The missiles strike command posts, communications nodes, radar sites. The enemy's integrated air defence? Shattered. By 4 aircraft. In minutes. With 0 friendly losses. That's not hypothetical. That's what Britain can do, right now, with existing technology. Air superiority. Typhoon was always superb at air-to-air combat. Supercruise. Sustained supersonic flight without afterburner. Thrust-to-weight ratio exceeding 1:1. Phenomenal agility. But ECRS Mark II makes it terrifying. Imagine a Typhoon facing advanced enemy fighters. Su-35s, J-20s, whatever the threat. The Typhoon detects them first. ECRS Mark II's wideband array picks up their radar emissions from 200 kilometers away, long before they detect the Typhoon. The pilot doesn't need to turn on his own radar, doesn't need to advertise his position. He sees the enemy. They don't see him. He launches Meteor missiles, ramjet-powered, no escape zone exceeding 100 kilometers from maximum range. The enemy doesn't even know they're targeted until the missiles go active in terminal phase. By then, too late. The Typhoon, already turning away, already escaping, leaving burning wreckage behind. This isn't Top Gun, this is modern air combat, where the side that sees first and shoots first wins, and ECRS Mark II ensures Britain sees first. Fleet defence. Britain has 2 Queen Elizabeth-class aircraft carriers, massive vessels, 65,000 tons each, capable of projecting British power anywhere. But carriers are vulnerable to cruise missiles, to submarines, to aircraft. F-35Bs operating from the carriers provide defence, excellent aircraft, stealthy, capable, but limited weapon capacity. Internal weapons bays restrict loadout, and only Britain operates F-35Bs from carriers outside America. Typhoons based on friendly airfields can extend carrier protection hundreds of kilometres. With ECRS Mark II, they detect threats the F-35Bs feed to them. The Typhoons, carrying 8 air-to-air missiles plus external weapons, engage those threats at extreme range. The carrier battle group becomes invulnerable. Protected by a layered defence the enemy can't penetrate. Now the critical question. The question British taxpayers deserve answered. What did this cost? ECRS Mark II development, £2.35 billion. Sounds enormous. But context matters. America's F-35 programme? Over $1 trillion for the entire programme. Development, procurement, sustainment. 1 trillion. Britain's contribution to F-35? Significant. But Britain gets some of that technology, not all, and with restrictions. ECRS Mark II? £2.35 billion for complete British ownership, complete control, complete sovereignty. And it sustains jobs. Over 600 highly skilled engineers just on the radar programme. 300 in Edinburgh at Leonardo, 100 in Luton, 120 in Lancashire at BAE. The broader Typhoon programme? Over 20,000 jobs across the UK, from Scotland to the south coast, from Wales to East Anglia. That's not just jobs, that's expertise, skills, knowledge. The kind of high-tech manufacturing base that Britain needs for the 21st century. And exports? Typhoon has sold to Austria, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Oman, Kuwait, Spain, Germany, Italy. Recent deals? Turkey agreed to buy 40 Typhoons in October 2025, worth billions. Britain's work share in Eurofighter? 37%. Every Typhoon sold, Britain gets 37% of the value, plus spares, plus support, plus upgrades. ECRS Mark II makes Typhoon more attractive, more capable, more valuable. Countries looking at fighters now see American F-35? Expensive, restricted. French Rafale? Good but limited electronic warfare. Russian Su-35? Sanctioned, unreliable supply chain. British Typhoon with ECRS Mark II? World-leading capability, no American restrictions, European reliability. Suddenly, Britain is in demand. Turkey wants Typhoons. Egypt considering. Poland interested. That's not just sales, that's influence. Geopolitical power through technological superiority. But here's where it gets really interesting. The bit that makes America nervous. ECRS Mark II is better than American systems in specific areas. America's F-35 has the APG-81 radar. Excellent system. Stealthy. Integrated with the airframe. Impressive. But it's narrow band. Designed primarily for air-to-air. Electronic warfare is supplementary. ECRS Mark II, wideband. Electronic warfare is co-equal with air-to-air, can do both simultaneously, at full capability. America's EA-18G Growler, dedicated electronic warfare aircraft, phenomenal at jamming. But that's all it does. Can't dogfight, can't strike targets, one mission. Typhoon with ECRS Mark II, multi-role, electronic warfare, air superiority, ground attack, reconnaissance, everything. One aircraft doing what America needs two aircraft to accomplish. And here's the kicker. Britain owns this technology. America can't buy it without British permission, can't copy it without violating intellectual property, can't even fully understand it without British cooperation. For the first time in decades, Britain has military technology America wants, that America needs, that America can't just take. That's power. Real power. The kind Britain hasn't had since the Second World War. October 2025. RAF Coningsby, Lincolnshire, home of the Typhoon squadrons. Flight Lieutenant James Morrison, 29 years old, Typhoon pilot, 6 years on type, briefs his mission. Standard air policing patrol over the North Sea. But his aircraft isn't standard. Tranche 3 Typhoon, already excellent, but now scheduled to receive ECRS Mark II in the next upgrade cycle. He knows what's coming, attended the briefings, studied the capabilities, understands what ECRS Mark II means. His father flew Tornado GR4s, Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya. Dangerous missions, often flying into heavily defended airspace, hoping the enemy's radars didn't see them, hoping surface-to-air missiles didn't find them. Too many didn't come home. James thinks about that, about his father's generation, about the risks they took, about the aircraft they flew, good aircraft, brilliant even, but lacking the tools to survive modern air defences. And now? Now James will fly with ECRS Mark II, will have the ability to see enemy radars from hundreds of kilometres away, to blind them before they even know he's there, to strike with impunity. His chances of coming home? Dramatically higher. Not because he's braver than his father, because British engineers gave him better tools. That's what £2.35 billion buys, not just capability, lives. British lives. And every British taxpayer should know that, should feel proud of that, should understand that this isn't wasteful spending. This is investing in British security, British sovereignty, British survival. But ECRS Mark II is only part of the story. Typhoon itself, even before the radar upgrade, is phenomenal. Since entering service in 2003, Typhoon has flown over 500,000 hours. Operation Shader, strikes against ISIS in Iraq and Syria. Baltic air policing, defending NATO airspace from Russian incursions. Falklands air defence, continuous quick reaction alert since 2012. Syria, first operational air-to-air kill with ASRAM in December 2021. That last one deserves attention. December 14, 2021, Al-Tanf Coalition Base, Syria, hostile. Drone approaches the base. Small, slow, difficult target for sophisticated systems. RAF Typhoon scrambled. Pilot acquires the drone visually, uses ASRAM, Advanced Short-Range Air-to-Air Missile, British designed, to engage. One missile, one kill. First operational air-to-air engagement by RAF Typhoon. Perfect. September 2022. Atlantic Thunder exercise, off the American coast. Typhoon from 41 Squadron attacks ex-USS Boone, decommissioned American warship, with Paveway 4 laser-guided bombs. Direct hits. ship sinking. First time RAF Typhoon struck a naval target with live ordnance, proving Typhoon's versatility. Maritime strike. September 2023. Finland. Exercise Barna 23. RAF Typhoons operate from highways, land on public roads, refuel, rearm, take off again, demonstrating capability to operate from anywhere, even if airbase is destroyed, even if infrastructure gone. That's resilience. British resilience. British ingenuity. Now let's address the elephant in the room. The question critics always raise. Why not just buy more F-35s? America's offering them. 5th generation stealth. Proven. Fair question. Deserves honest answer. F-35B is excellent. Britain operates them from carriers. Will eventually have 138 total. Superb aircraft for specific missions. But F-35 is not a Typhoon replacement. Different mission. F-35, stealth. First day of war penetration. Strike heavily defended targets. Information warfare. Typhoon, air superiority. Persistent presence. Large weapon loads. Lower operating cost. RAF needs both. The F-35, colloquially called the Assassin, Typhoon called the Thug. Assassin strikes quietly, disappears, invisible. Thug controls airspace, dominates, overwhelms. Modern air combat needs both approaches, flexibility, options. And here's the economic reality. Typhoon costs less to operate than F-35B, significantly less. No low observable coatings to maintain. No complex thermal management. Supply chain, British managed. For peacetime air policing, quick reaction alerts, Typhoons are perfect. And affordable. F-35s for high-intensity war against peer adversaries, Typhoons for everything else. That's not weakness, that's smart force structure. And the future? What comes next? GCAP, Global Combat Air Programme. Britain, Japan, Italy, developing the 6th generation fighter, called Tempest for the British portion. Expected service entry, mid-2030s, automatically manned, artificial intelligence integrated, revolutionary. But until then, Typhoon. Typhoon will serve until 2040, at least, possibly longer. And every year between now and then, Typhoon gets better. Phase 4 enhancement, P4E, upgrade. New weapons, new sensors, new capabilities. ECRS Mk2 radar rolling out to all Tranche 3 aircraft, later potentially Tranche 2. Integration with loyal wingman drones. Autonomous aircraft flying alongside Typhoons. Force multiplication. Typhoon isn't ending. Typhoon is evolving. And Britain leads that evolution. 37% work share. But intellectual leadership? Britain drives Typhoon's development more than any other partner. Germany wants different radar? Fine. They get ECRS Mark I. Britain gets Mark II. Better, more capable, more British. Spain wants certain weapons? Approved. Britain integrates Storm Shadow, Brimstone, Meteor, Spear 3 coming. Typhoon becomes what Britain needs, not what the consortium agrees, what Britain needs. That's sovereignty in action. Back to Andy Holden, the man who watched that first ECRS Mark II flight from his home office. He's been with BAE Systems since 1993. Apprentice, worked his way up. 3 decades. Tornado, Harrier, Hawk, Typhoon. He's seen British aerospace at its best, and sometimes its worst. Projects cancelled, jobs lost, expertise wasted. But ECRS Mark II? This is British aerospace at its absolute best. World-leading technology, developed in Britain, built in Britain, for Britain. He says, it's about more than detection. It's about electronic attack and dominance. Put simply, that means allowing the Typhoon to punch through enemy air defences and operate with unrivaled confidence. Unrivaled confidence. That's what ECRS Mark II gives British pilots. Confidence they can survive, can complete their mission, can come home. And for Andy, for the 600 engineers working on this programme, for the 20,000 people across Britain whose jobs depend on Typhoon, that matters. They're not just building a radar, they're protecting Britain, protecting British lives, protecting British interests, and they're doing it brilliantly. So what should Britons think when they hear about Typhoon? First, pride. Britain built this. Not with American help, not as a junior partner, as an equal, as a leader. Second, security. Typhoon defends Britain every single day. Quick reaction alerts scramble when Russian aircraft probe British airspace, and they always scramble, and they always intercept. Third, sovereignty. Britain controls this technology. Britain decides how it's used, who gets it, what capabilities are added. Fourth, economics. 20,000 British jobs, billions in exports, technology leadership in a critical industry. Fifth, future. ECRS Mark II isn't an ending, it's a foundation. Skills developed here feed into GCAP, into Tempest, into Britain's aerospace future. Sixth, respect. When other nations see British Typhoons, they don't see outdated fourth-generation fighters. They see lethal platforms with capabilities they struggle to match. Flight Lieutenant Morrison, the Typhoon pilot we met earlier, takes off from Coningsby, standard patrol. But nothing feels standard anymore. He knows what's coming. ECRS Mark II upgrade, next year. His aircraft, his squadron. He thinks about his father, the Tornado pilot who flew into Iraqi air defences, who survived, who came home, but who lost friends who didn't. And he thinks, I'll have tools they never imagined. Capabilities that redefine what's possible. Not because Britain spent more money, because Britain spent money wisely. On sovereign capabilities, on British engineering. His Typhoon climbs through clouds, levels at 40,000 feet, radar scanning, clean airspace, peaceful. But he knows, when it's not peaceful, when threats emerge, he'll be ready, with the best aircraft, the best radar, the best weapons. All British, all world class. And if someone asks, why should I feel proud? The answer flies overhead, every day. Defending Britain, projecting British power, representing British excellence. Typhoon, with ECRS Mark II. The aircraft that gave Britain unprecedented power. Not because it's the biggest, because it's the best. Not because it's the most expensive, because it's the smartest. Not because Britain had to, because Britain could. And that's the difference. That's what makes Britain, Britain. Not an arms buyer, an arms maker. Not a client state, a sovereign power. NATO. Panicking? Let them. Because Britain just reminded the world, never underestimate British engineering. Never assume Britain can't lead. Never forget that Britain, when challenged, delivers excellence. Typhoon proves it. ECRS Mark II proves it. And every British citizen should know it. Precision defeats mass. Quality beats quantity. British engineering endures. Forever.